everybody. It's me again, Mary. I'm here with Earth and Star Spiritual Wellness Center. And today we have an extremely special guest with us. We have Yona Frenchhawk. And Yona is going to be your Eye Shine Sweat Lodge facilitator. And I cannot tell you how excited we are, how in love we are with having Yona join us. So Yona actually, as we can see, is on the road for a 4-hour drive because he is so busy spreading love and knowledge and wisdom all over the place over here on the East Coast. You're actually right now, Yona, on your way to a conference, you said?
Yes, I'm going to be doing a lecture at Elon University down in Burlington, North Carolina.
What are we talking about
So
at Elon?
we're talking about a place called Pilot Mountain, North Carolina. For ages, there have been Native American tribes that come to Pilot Mountain because it is a quartz crystal mountain that carries a lot of earth energy, vibrational energy. And so I'm talking about how indigenous ceremony and ritual of healing and spiritual delving deeper vibrationally. People would come to this mountain and connect for healing and spiritual guidance. And just tying that in with some Cherokee stories about the land here and the people and the culture.
I think that's really important. And this is something special about you because I think something that I read was that there's thousands of card carrying Cherokee. Is that correct? But you're actually like a full blooded Cherokee, and that there's only a few hundred of those left in the world. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. And I'm a member of the Eastern Band of Cherokee, which is located in Cherokee, North Carolina, where I was born and raised in the Smoky Mountains. And then we have the Western Band of Cherokee in Tahlequah, Oklahoma. And there's also a third federally recognized tribe known as the Kaduwa tribe, and they are also located in Oklahoma. And altogether, we have about, I'd say, pretty close to 75,000 enrolled members combined. But out of that, less than 1,000 full-blooded Cherokee.
Wow. Wow. Well, tell me about your upbringing then, because I don't think that we really think about it mainstream about how things have been so different for you being raised in that sort of environment, even here in North Carolina, where in the Bible Belt, I think that that might actually play a slightly different role for you as well. What was your childhood like?
Well, thank you for asking, Mary. Let me, number one, preface this with the fact that my father was a Southern Baptist preacher.
I
And
love
both, well, I'm a recovering Southern Baptist myself. So both my parents were taken from their families and forcibly sent to boarding schools.
mm,
In North Carolina, that was the Quaker. The Quakers came in and ran the boarding schools here. And at that time, the Cherokee, the Indian people were only given a sixth grade education. They were taught carpentry skills. They were taught how to plumb, how to be of service. The women were taught how to do laundry, how to cook, how to iron and make clothes. They were never given the vision of going to college or higher education. They were given the opportunity to be of service. So, in that, in the boarding schools, you also had to become Christian. And if you didn't accept Jesus Christ as your Savior, then you were an indentured slave to the mission. So, in order to get away from the boarding school, my dad said, yes, I will become a preacher to get out of here. And so, in those days, my father, our church, everyone spoke Cherokee. Our Bibles were printed in the Cherokee language. Our hymn books were printed in the Cherokee language. We sang Amazing Grace, Kneel at the Cross in Cherokee. We listened in Cherokee. And whenever the Quakers, they would send supervisors, ministers, missionaries to watch my dad to make sure that he preached the word as they taught it to him, but they couldn't speak Cherokee. So my dad would get behind the pulpit and just liken the Bible and Jesus to some of our Cherokee chiefs that we knew of, that were good people, that were in touch with nature, that he'd talk about how Jesus would go talk with the birds and connect with nature. That's what we do. He would talk about how Jesus was kind of an outcast from the scholars because he was illegitimate. He was found in a river. Um, so we were kind of illegitimate. We were kind of outsiders in our own place. So he would liken these lessons so that we could, because we didn't know this Jesus person until a few hundred years ago, and until the settlers came and introduced Christianity to us. Until then, we were about nature and earth, and that's was my unilateral upbringing, was this 1 foot in the Christian world and 1 foot in the nature world, where we did sweat lodge with my grandfather, who spoke no English, didn't care to go to church, didn't want to know about church. He was all about nature, animal, forest. And then I had the other side. So that was basically my childhood, that conflict that I had. But I knew I was surrounded by love in either direction. So I grew up with that kind of, in a way, being challenged.
Mm.
And but it was also the 60s and 70s in the South, where there were still colored and white bathrooms in Asheville, North Carolina. And I remember being confused because I wasn't colored and I wasn't white. And so that has kind of led me to where I am in my life, of how have we overcome that in my lifetime. And this is what I hope to share in this retreat, and how we move forward, not only with this retreat community, but how we move forward as a community in common unity toward coming back into balance and harmony with all the things that we look to inside for self love and self guidance. And hopefully, the people that we're looking for are out there looking for us, and we're all going to get together.
Well, aside from holding back my own tears at your story, and I don't think you even dove deep into like the emotional aspects of your story or what that felt like. You and your family, you've really come through a lot, and you're doing amazing work out there with the sweat lodge, doing the different retreats, and you're a wisdom keeper. So you share a lot about the Cherokee peoples and your stories. Is that right?
I do. And that was another gift, as another echelon or level of my childhood. My grandfather, who spoke no English, we grew up on 300 acres of mountain land,
Wow.
and wake up in the morning, and it wasn't unusual to see bobcats or deer in the backyard, or an occasional bear. Our closest neighbor was over a quarter mile away. There was no electricity, no running water. We had a radio, but my grandfather never listened to it because he didn't speak any English.
Mm,
So we would sit on the front porch at nighttime and watch lightning bugs and look at the stars and tell stories. And so that was entertainment. That was books. That was TV. That was whatever the entertainment was at the time. That was our entertainment.
mhm.
So
And
that was
you're
also part of what shaped me in that way.
so where did your parents get your name from? Because I heard the animals that you would see outside, but that's also what your name means.
I only laugh because, you know, there's just there's so much humor in how we learn about things we don't know about in different cultures. And so thank you for that. That's Yona. Yona Guska is actually my name that my grandfather gave me. Yona Guska was a chief during the time in the 1830s when Andrew Jackson signed the Indian Removal Act that set
Mm,
the Cherokee people on the Trail of Tears. And Yona Guska was the chief of one of the band of Cherokee here in North Carolina. And whenever the armies came to hunt the Cherokee to move them out, it was my grandfather that went to the Cherokee people and said that whoever doesn't want to leave these mountains, the only home we've ever known as a people, whoever doesn't want to go, come with me. And he didn't lead them into war. He led them into the mountains, and we hid from the army to the point where they couldn't find us all, and they were losing people and wasting time, basically. So the government finally said, we'll make a deal with you. And so it was my great 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 grandfather, Yona the Cherokee. We never went to war with the army, and we were never defeated by the U.S. Army. And so that was my great 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 grandfather on my father's side. So when I was little, my grandfather would come out with all his grandkids. He had all kinds of grandkids. He said how many, I can't remember, but somewhere in the 20s, 30s grandkids. And he would come out on the front porch and he would say, Yona and to any of the kids, and wait for one of the kids to respond. And no, none of them would. And he said one day, he said, Yona. And I turned and I whipped around and I looked at him and he said, come to me. And he began to teach me. Yona means bear in Cherokee, in the Cherokee language. So when you say my name, you're speaking Cherokee. Yona means bear. Frenchhawk is in honor of my mother's maiden name. The Cherokee are a matriarchal society. So my mother was Bird Clan, so I also am of the Bird Clan. So I'm a singer, storyteller, wisdom keeper. Those are the traits and the medicine of the Bird Clan of the Cherokee. So Yona Frenchhawk is Bear Frenchhawk. So we have the bear and the bird. My dad was from the Bear and Wolf Clan. So I have my dad, the bear, and then Frenchhawk, my mother, to honor both my parents.
What a beautiful legacy to have. You know, you told me that Yona meant bear, but then you get into who the original name came from. And that's a really beautiful, wise namesake to have. And you're still doing that work. You're still telling these stories. And I really feel intuitively that there's something big behind that, because you said that that leader who is in your ancestral DNA didn't leave. He stayed. He kept his home, but he didn't lead people into war, that you hid and you created your own spaces in the mountains. And even today, I feel like you have a very specific job, and your job is bridging these old ways and this ancestral way of being and this speaking with the earth, and everything that just feels like it's soaked into your blood and bones, and connecting that somehow into the future. Would you like to talk a little bit about that bridge that you're creating with love of all peoples and unity and inclusiveness and wisdom, sharing these stories so that there's not such a divide, but how we can, through compassion and love, come into unity together?
Mhm. Great question. Abridged version. Through high school, growing up in the South, we did experience a lot of prejudice. So I did have a lot of angst. And by the time I had no interest really in going to college, because that meant more of that kind of behavior around me, where we were kind of, yeah, we were divided. It was segregated, even though we were in a non it was like it was segregation. And, we were not white. And so going to college for me just meant more of that. So to get out of the mountains was, back then the plan was join the military. And you join the military, you get out of town, get an education, do your 4 years, and you're in and you're out, and you have at least a head start. So I grew up with that angst of being looked at differently, being treated a little different. Not entirely, but it was still pretty bad. And so when I joined the military, I was the perfect soldier because I had this anger. I was young, I was athletic. I knew how to hunt, I knew how to track, I knew how to do all the things they were already trying to teach me. And so I was a good soldier. But I also learned more about the world in that time, And I also learned in that time in the military that I wasn't this angry young man that I thought I was. I just needed to get away from the situation I was in. And then that evolved into being out into the world where I could make decisions not based upon the color of my skin, but to follow my heart and my spirit instead. Not
Mm.
looking for, ooh, am I safe here? Am I accepted here? Walking to a restaurant and reading the signs first to see if it says no colors welcome. You know, I grew up with that proclivity of, or that awareness of that feeling. I remember being turned away from restaurants and stores growing up because we weren't white. And so learning how to get over that, but still walking around with a sense of deep pride, maybe too much sometimes. Um, and sometimes in my youth, looking for conflict. I was an activist. I joined the American Indian movement, which is about raising the rights and the awareness for Native American people, and attended protest and got arrested a couple of times for inciting riots or, you know, those aiding and abetting by bringing rice and beans to a protest. And, oh, I get arrested all of a sudden because I'm aiding and abetting activists because I brought food. And so those were the kind of conflicts and arrests that I got involved in, was those kind of civil uprising kind of activism for my people. And so that led me into having to just got to get that out of my system. And that led me to my elders within the American Indian movement asking me to pray for them. And they said that I had this energy and spirit. I've always been a storyteller. I've always sung. I've always been a singer. So we would sit around the fire and I would just do what I naturally do. And that started to attract people. And it became to a point where the elders saw that I had a voice in the community. And it was a peaceful voice. So it was then decided, because I'd done ceremony with my grandfather, I had let go of that because that was part of my young shame. And now it took going to the army, getting out of the army, being an activist, the elders of this activism movement, seeing the spiritual side of me and bringing me back into balance with who I am as a Cherokee and learning self love. So that was my first big hug from the universe saying, Yona, it's okay. It's okay to be you. Let's get this out of your system. Let's breathe a little bit. There are people out here listening that need to hear what you want to share. So get all this angst out of your system. Let's go into ceremony, sweat it out, let it go. You get good with yourself. And once you're there in that balance, when you find that masculine and feminine balance in your own life and create that divinity, then we're going to do great things. And that's what happened in my life.
What a story. Thank you so much for sharing a bit of your history with that. And that's kind of what everyone here who's guided here or guided to this I Shine Inner Fire retreat, we're looking at ways to heal. And you're giving us an entire testimony in a very big way. It's not like something bad happened when you were a kid and you lived in rejection for the rest of your life. You had literal lack of safety, literal, am I even welcome to buy groceries at this place? Am I welcome to use the bathroom here? Just basic human rights and rejection of that. And being able to come out of the ingrained or taught shame of who you are as an actual person and overcome all of that and make it into a bright light, make it into a divine connection that can be shared within unity. It really speaks volumes within the collective of how the world goes through these huge disruptions that really hurt so many people, and those same people or their ancestors, because the lineage continues, are able to eventually rise up and right the world again. And that's where I feel you're bridging, because it's not that you've only just righted yourself through that balance and through the help of your ancestors and your inner workings, you're helping to right the world. You're bringing that balance to your community, to North Carolina, to South Carolina, to the Eastern coast, to the world, essentially, as you reach different people. And that's such a beautiful thing. You have such a large spirit, such a powerful spirit. And I hope that lots of people get to encounter you, because just through who you are in your own personal evolution, everyone that you touch, everyone you speak to, everyone that you meet will you will spark an evolution in them as well. I have zero doubt about it.
Oh, well, thank you for that. I like to think that uh, there have been so many turning points in my life, and I believe we all have those if we're paying close enough attention. And that was the one thing that it really took me a few decades to really measure where I was in my life instead of chasing the American dream, the house, the car, the kids, the dogs, the picket fence, and all of that. And that was my measure of success, coming from a culture where we were so wealthy in abundance of love and community and kinship, but there wasn't a whole lot of money. And so it wasn't until, I don't know, until I was like 30 years old, I heard my sister get up in church and say, "You know, we grew up poor." And I was like, "We did? Where did you grow up? Because I don't remember being poor." And that was the difference of, being shown that template as a child. This is what success is. This much money a year, your IRA, your retirement account, and this and that and the other. That was the dream. And I learned somewhere in my 30s and 40s that, wow, I was chasing the wrong rabbit the whole time. And kind of had that Dorothy Wizard of Oz moment of I never had to leave my own backyard in order to find what I was looking for. But the
Mm,
journey was necessary.
beautiful.
So it's,
I love that. And I love that you're bringing that aspect as well, because I think a lot of the people who are on the healing path now or who are attending this retreat, what they're really looking for is that love and community. They're looking for that connection because they too are on that path where their measure of success is, how abundant am I? What is my job like? What does my family look like? My home? How am I successful? But the way that the times are now, we're coming back to ourselves. Spirituality is making another rise, and people are understanding that doesn't always matter. I can feel safe inside of myself. I can learn to love myself, and I can also find a loving community that connects me back in with nature, back in with the hearts of everyone around me, a compassionate, empathetic type of community where it doesn't matter the color of our skin, it doesn't matter our spiritual belief systems, where we can just love and accept everyone as we're loved and accepted, and we all are just this one spirit and this one soul moving forward. And I love that you're kind of bridging that for us through these experiences.
well, I don't know if you believed in preordination of life or divine journeys, or, we have this destiny. We're all headed somewhere. And, I grew up with elders that saw the world with nature eyes, not TV books. They would look at the stars and they would listen to the wind. They would look for woolly worms showing up early to see if it was going to be a long winter or not, or a cold winter, or there were things in nature that they would know as telltale signs of what was coming next. And to come from that culture of simplicity and non expectation, and to be forced into public schooling to where it was so different. But I was always taught as a child that in order to realize, I was a daydreamer. in elementary school. I couldn't speak English, so I mean, school wasn't fun for me, you know. And we had a translator that went to school with us my first 4 or 5 years of school because I couldn't understand English. But my parents didn't want me going to the Indian school because they tested lowest in scores in the state every year. So they wanted us to get a better education. So all I'm saying is that they, my ancestors wanted better for us than the life that they were offered. And so in this time to come to bridge the ancient past into the ancient future by being present now, in order to honor our ancestors, what better way to do that than to live the prayer they prayed for us? To live in abundance and love, to live a compassionate and kind life, and to be surrounded and find that community, to find that place in nature that brings that to life and nurtures it. So there is a garden that we can all contribute to and that we can all harvest from and all sustain the same level of health. And we do
I
it through honoring.
I want everyone just to mark this in their YouTube video, just to mark this timestamp at 26 minutes or 25 and a half minutes, because I feel the depth of what you just said. Yona just said, to bridge the ancient past to the ancient future, all we have to do is live the prayer our ancestors prayed for us, which is the love, the abundance, all of these beautiful things, honoring all of time and space right now. All of that is so, so important. And I feel like through this bridge, you've also kind of told us your intention for this particular retreat that you're joining us at. So at I Shine Inner Fire Retreat, Yona is going to be joining us for the Sweat Lodge portion. But we say welcome home when you come to Earth and Star Spiritual Wellness and have a retreat with us, because there's something about finding the home that's inside of you that's so important. And all of these facilitators who are coming for you to help you find that space inside, they all kind of represent a different room inside of the house, inside of the whole. The whole thing is your home, the welcome home. And each of the facilitators that you've seen have a different intention for you, something that they specifically and very beautifully are that they're bringing to help you find that inside of yourself. Yona, what is your intention? What will your room inside of this home look like or feel like?
Well, it will actually be a room, sort of, a sweat lodge. Um, to the Cherokee, the sweat lodge ceremony and ritual is about returning to the womb of Mother Earth.
Mm.
And for not only we as human beings, but you know, we're spirit beings. What's the saying? We're spirit beings having a human experience here on Earth. So let's take that a step further. To the Cherokee, we come from the stars. And so whenever the star people came to the Earth, each star represented a spirit that lives here on this Earth. So when the stars came, one star came, and whenever it made contact with Mother Earth, because Mother Earth put an invitation out to the stars and said, whoever wants to come live here, come and be with me. So when the star would come, like the grasshopper came, and the grasshopper made contact, and that vibration went deep into Mother Earth's heart. And Mother Earth knew everything there was to know about grasshoppers, how to love them, how to grow them, how to nurture them. So the night sky was filled with shooting stars of every spirit upon this earth, the ducks, the grass, the acorns, all the life that we know here. Each of them came and told Mother Earth their story. And when they all came, they went and created the lifeblood that is Earth. And whenever all the living beings of Earth came, Mother's heart exploded with pleasure and gratitude. And this is where this molten lava came and created the stone people. And so when we go into ceremony, these stone people represent the star beings, the star memory that lives here on Earth with us. So we put them back into the fire to warm them. and we bring them back into the womb, the room. We go back into the womb to remember that language that we all speak, that vibrational language that's spoken only between a mother and a child, that heartbeat language. It knows no color, it knows no religion, it knows no politics, it knows no north, south, light, dark, right, wrong. It's just a vibrational essence of life. So, in this lodge, in this room, is an opportunity to step back into ancient remembrance. We're not learning anything, we're just here to remember what's already living inside of us. And so, coming into the sweat lodge experience and being around the fire and the elements, because inside the sweat lodge, we experience what we know to be sacred breath. We have all the elements of life, the fire, the water, the earth, and the air. And when we close that door and go back into the womb and we combine all those elements together, that steam represents the breath of the Creator to the Cherokee. And we can take the essence of this pureness of breath and purge out any energies or darkness that no longer serves. And thus we sweat. So it's not a contest to see how hot we can get it or how tough you are, but we are there to see what are you willing to give back in sacred reciprocity for what you're seeking in life, for the answers to your prayers and to the answers to your visions and to realize your dreams. What are you willing to give back in sacred reciprocity for each and every breath that you know is life? And what's that worth to you?
That hit me deep in my heart. I'm definitely going to be there. I'm so excited about this. And you do come from a matriarchal society, you were telling me, and how the males have a lot to do with sweat lodge and even drumming because they the women have a natural purging cycle. Can you tell us about that a little bit?
Sure. A lot of the sweat lodge community, because when I was growing up, we did ceremony only with men in the sweat lodge, and the women had their own sweat lodge. So the energies were in that way because the women would come in to do fertility ceremonies where they would bleed into the earth to nurture the earth. So that was medicine that was sacred. It wasn't that it was taboo or anything was wrong with it, but honor space. You know, there are just some things you don't touch. It can affect you, but there are some things that maybe just aren't meant for us. So um, the men are taught to not only to be protectors, providers, good fathers, whatever those things are that we look at in society, but they're also taught to be protectors and providers and
So we lost you for just a second there, Yona, but you're up in the mountains right now, right?
yes, I am.
So
Uh,
I feel like what was going on though, aside from being in the mountains and the wind blowing really hard and all of that, is you were beginning to talk about some sacred stuff there and the energy got really big. You were talking about really, really, you were talking about some ancient things, some ancestral things, and I think the energy got really big and just knocked us out. And maybe there's some people out there who don't know the things we were about to talk about. But let's get back on track, though. We were talking about your particular intention for this retreat within that womb space that's reconnecting us back in with the spirit of divinity. And you mentioned that basically your bridge there or your intention was self-love and the love of all people. It was a lot about love, which has a lot to do with your own personal journey as well, right?
yeah, it does. And, you know, I was married relatively young and we had a son, and then my wife died when our son was 5 years old. And so I became a single parent really quick. And some ways, and, really wasn't ready for that. But this was also in a time of my life where I was still in that realm of the American dream, chasing the house, the car, and all of that. And but it also shifted me into really taking on more responsibility in my life. And now I had this young son that, wow, I'm a dad now. And that was a stark reality. It was a serious wake up call in my life. And as my son started asking me questions about mom, and it took me back to my own childhood to some questions I'd never asked before. And it led me to a place where my son was one of my biggest teachers at 5, 6, 7 years old, just by the questions that he would ask me and I couldn't answer or never thought of to answer. And so that put me on a path of going to counseling. And that led me to sometimes being able to hear some things I didn't want to hear, or saying things out loud that I never thought I would say out loud. But going and finding someone, an outlet, a friend, because my counselor became a friend that I could trust. And it was one of the first times as an adult I found a safe space to be vulnerable. So I'm in gratitude for my son, for his innocence and his curiosities that led me to really take a deeper look at myself. And that's how I learned to really look in the mirror and take measure, because that was the first time in my life I'd ever slowed down in 30 something years to look in the mirror and say, where am I in my life? So that was a turning point. And it put me on the path of reading, all the self-help books. And living in California at the time, I was surrounded by all the self-realization and conscious thinking and conscious living and awareness and all of those catchphrases that we know. And that was like 30 years ago. So it's been a long journey, and every day is another opportunity to live what I've learned and learn even more.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing. You have such an amazing story. I want to hear a lot more, but we'll do that later. We'll talk for 6 hours after this. Let's get into logistics for just a couple minutes, just for the people who are attending or thinking about attending. When it comes to the sweat lodge itself, we know, like you said, it's going to be this room that you're building, that the fire is outside. We're warming those rocks, we're warming those star people, we're bringing them in, we're creating the steam to be held inside of that room. So as we breathe it in, we're breathing in that essence of spirit to connect us to the divine. We're creating an exchange where the heat is causing us to sweat. So we're giving up something of the flesh in order to receive the answers to our prayers or our visions. But on a physical, logical level, what does this look like for the people? How hot is this? Are they able to leave if they feel it's overwhelming? What do they need to know on a physical level before coming in? Because we have a wide range of people doing this, from young to old. What do they need to know
Hmm.
about this process?
Well, number one, hydrate, whatever that looks like for you, water, fruit, veggies, or hydrate yourself well. Um, as far as, again, we have measured it, and it really doesn't get any more hot than 115, 120 degrees. It may feel hotter because we're in a contained space, but the temperature is
But it gets about 100 and you were saying it gets about 115 degrees, but it may feel hotter because we're in an enclosed space.
Yes. And yes, it's for, I've had people come in with claustrophobia. We can be accommodating for anyone that might want to sit closer to the door to feel a little more safe. We also, inside, it's okay to, we let people know that if it gets to be too much, we have a phrase that we say. All we do is say, all my relations. And I go through all of this before we ever get started and just let people know if, if you find it's too much for you, it doesn't matter if we're in silence or singing a song or in the middle of a prayer. If you need air or for the door to open, all you have to do is say, all my relations. We know what that means. We'll open the door. We want everyone to have a good experience. I've been in ceremony where it's been very strict and, you got to be tough and you got to power through it. And I get that on some degrees, but when it's a new thing and we're introducing it to new community, it's really important uh, to let people know you're in safe space. It's okay to be here. And to me, that's of the utmost importance. That's the larger message that we want to share is that you are in safe space in this community. And we're not going to ask you to do anything that you're not comfortable with. And it's nothing to be ashamed of. And even if you can just come in for one round, thank you for what you do give. Or even if people just come to sit around the fire to support the ceremony, thank you. Or if people can't come and are aware and light a candle at home or somewhere to add vibrational energy, thank you. So those are uh, it's not that strict, but we do ask that, if you can, to endure and to be part of the circle because mother goes through labor, mother goes through difficulty too in order to carry us. And for us to remind ourselves that what is given to realize the beauty that surrounds us and the beauty that lives within us, that mother gives too. And what can we give back in
Beautiful.
reciprocity?
I tell you what, your guides are so on point right now because they are knocking this video out every single time you start talking about something that they don't want shared. Even when you're talking about like, oh yeah, you can come in, but you don't have to stay in. We're not that strict. The video starts going churn, churn, churn. But then as soon as you're like, but mother endures, the video went still. Like, listen to this, people. This is what you need to do. So I do feel like this whole thing has been completely guided with exactly what people actually need to hear and what they need to know stepping into this experience with you, because this experience isn't just about the sweat lodge, although it will be absolutely transformative on a spiritual, emotional, and physical level. It's also about the facilitator. It's about you. It's about Yona Frenchhawk, who's coming in and giving this entire experience and all of the energetic vibrations that you guys are getting from your teachers here, your facilitators, their experiences, the love that they have and that they've grown through. These are things that they actually have to give to you. So when you come to I Shine Inner Fire Retreat, just know that you're here receiving energy from people who have spent their lives overcoming, coming into self love, trying to master their connection with the divine, and at least just be present with their connection with the divine. So I'm super, super happy that you are with us today, Yona, giving us these stories and some of your history and a little bit about what you're doing here with the Sweat Lodge experience. Is there anything else that you want anybody to know or anything you want to share about your current offerings and the other things that you have available?
Okay, I lost that last part, but I think you were asking me if there's anything else I want people to know. Um, if you're ever in Asheville, we are doing regular Sweat Lodge offerings here in Asheville, Cherokee teachings. It's not only Sweat Lodge, but we do seasonal ceremonies. It's called the Horseshoe Farm here in Asheville, outside of Asheville. at Hendersonville, North Carolina, and you can check that out at thehorseshoefarm.com. But I'm also a minister in a non-denominational creation spirituality church here in Nashville called Jubilee Community. So most days you can find me there, but also you can look on my website and see whatever offerings that might interest you. But first and foremost, I just want everyone to know how big of an honor it is for me to be of service and to show up, of how I feel so incredibly blessed to have been given this opportunity in my life to, whatever this growth is called, whatever this position that I'm in my life, to just be me. I didn't have to go to college to get a degree. I didn't have to go to seminary. What I'm doing today in my life is just remembering where I come from and who I am. And you can call that making a living, but it is a dream. It's a dream come true for me, that to be able to be part of and to help create community, common unity, the common unity, and bringing back innocence and balance and harmony in a good way. And in that good way just means that with the best of our abilities in our spirit and what we know to be in the highest vibration, in the brightest light, with effortless, effortless energy to just shine and to do it in a good way. Just like when the sun comes up and shines and everything grows, it just does what it does in a good way. So let's all shine together.
Thank you so much, Yona. Such an amazing last phrase in a good way. And that's something that Yona brings to the table. That's one of his catchphrases here, and it has a very deep meaning. So thank you so much for being with us today. Once again, guys, if you want to be able to reach him, he's going to be at our I Shine Inner Fire retreat, June 19th through the 22nd as those retreat dates. You can go to earthandstarsspiritualwellness.com under our events page and get your ticket to that. And he's going to be doing Sweat Lodge out there. But you can also find Yona at yonafrenchhawk.com. His link is going to be below in the comment section. So you check him out. He's got stuff on YouTube. Apparently, you've got lots of stuff out there for people to be able to listen to you and to hear your wise stories and your history. So thank you so much today for coming, Yona. It's been an amazing, deepening, eye-opening, shining experience. And we'll see all of you guys later. Bye.
Bye.